Before we begin today's story, if you're new here, welcome to the channel where we bring you the most compelling true-to-life stories of love, redemption, and second chances. If you enjoy this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. And if this story touches your heart, leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Now, let's begin. Moscow, Russia, 15 years ago. The sound of gunfire echoed through the private shooting range. 8-year-old Ivan Volkov stood beside his father, Dmitry Volkov, one of the most feared men in Moscow's underworld. The boy's small hands trembled as he held the pistol, but his father's firm grip steadied him. "Again," Dmitry commanded in Russian. "An empire is not built on weakness, soon. One day, all of this will be yours." But across town, in their luxurious apartment overlooking the Moscow River, Ivan's mother, Kotya, waited with warm milk and stories of heroes who chose kindness over cruelty. She was a woman who somehow maintained her softness despite being married to a monster. Every night, after his father's brutal lessons, she would hold Ivan close and whisper, "You are not your father. You have a choice, my darling. Always remember, you have a choice." 10 years later, Ivan at 18. Ivan had become everything his father wanted on the surface. He was fluent in 4 languages, held a black belt in karate, was a skilled boxer, and had just graduated from the London School of Economics with honors. He could negotiate business deals and speak the language of legitimate enterprise. But he could also field-strip a weapon in under a minute and had been present at business meetings that ended in bloodshed. On the night of his graduation celebration at their Moscow estate, Ivan stood in the doorway of his father's office, frozen. Inside, Dmitry Volkov sat calmly behind his desk while 2 of his men beat a debtor who had failed to pay on time. The man's teenage daughter knelt beside him, begging for mercy. "Please, Mr. Volkov. My father will get the money. Please." Dmitry took a long draw from his cigar. "You understand. This is just business. Your father borrowed. Your father must pay. If he cannot pay with money." He let the implication hang in the air as he looked at the girl. Ivan's stomach turned. This was the empire he was meant to inherit. This was the legacy written in his name. That night, he went to his mother's room. She was reading, as she always did before bed. "Mama," he said quietly, "I can't do this." Kotya looked up at her son, no longer a boy, but a young man at a crossroads. She had waited 18 years for these words. "Then don't," she said simply. "Your father has given you skills, education, and strength. But I gave you a conscience. Use what you have to build something different." 2 weeks later, Ivan withdrew $3,000 from his personal account, money from a trust his mother had secretly established, and boarded a flight to New York City. He left behind a note for his father. "I am grateful for everything you've taught me, but I cannot become you. I choose a different path. Ivan." Dmitry Volkov's rage shook the entire organization. He immediately froze all of Ivan's accounts and blocked his inheritance. But he couldn't follow his son to America. Outstanding warrants and federal indictments made sure of that. His final message to Ivan was delivered through his mother. "Tell him he has 1 year to come back. After that, he is no son of mine." Ivan had found a tiny studio apartment in Brownsville, one of Brooklyn's roughest neighborhoods. The building was old, the walls were thin, and the air conditioning barely worked. But it was his, paid for with his own money from his own labor. He had taken a job at Maria's Kitchen, a small family restaurant 2 blocks away. The pay was minimum wage, the hours were long, and he smelled like fryer grease every night. But for the first time in his life, Ivan felt clean. His only friend was Jamie, a young black man who worked the morning shift. Jamie had been the first to welcome him, teaching him American slang and how to navigate the subway system. "Man, you're not from around here, are you?" Jamie had laughed on Ivan's first day, listening to his formal English with a Russian accent. "No. I am from Moscow. I came here for a fresh start." Jamie had nodded, asking no further questions. That was the thing about people starting over. They understood that everyone had a past they were running from. Ivan's plan was simple: save every dollar possible, build credit, and eventually start a small business. Maybe import, export, leveraging his European connections and business degree. He had given himself 5 years. Everything was going according to plan until he noticed her. She came into Maria's kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon. She was beautiful: deep brown skin, natural hair pulled back in a ponytail, and the most striking dark eyes Ivan had ever seen. But it wasn't her beauty that caught his attention. It was the way she held herself, like someone trying to become invisible. She was with a man, tall, muscular, with a presence that commanded the room. He wore expensive jewelry and designer clothes that seemed out of place in this neighborhood restaurant. The man, whom Ivan would later learn was called Denzel, or Black Mamba on the streets, barked orders at her. "Genevieve, I said I wanted the chicken spicy. This ain't spicy. Go tell them to make it right." "Denzel, you didn't say." "Don't talk back to me. Just do what I said." The young woman, Genevieve, had stood up quickly, her hands shaking slightly as she walked to the counter. When Ivan took the order back, he noticed the fear in her eyes and what looked like a fading bruise on her forearm. Over the following weeks, they came in regularly. Ivan began to notice a pattern. Genevieve would sit quietly, barely eating, while Denzel conducted business on his phone, speaking in coded language that Ivan, with his background, understood perfectly. This man was a dealer, and by the deference shown to him by others in the neighborhood, a powerful one. But it was Genevieve who haunted Ivan's thoughts. There was something about her eyes. They reminded him of that teenage girl in his father's office, pleading for mercy. Someone trapped. Someone who needed help. "You need to stay away from that situation, bro," Jamie warned him one evening after their shift. They were walking back to their building. It turned out Jamie lived 3 floors up from Ivan. "What do you mean?" "I see you looking. That girl, Genevieve. She's Denzel's property. And Denzel, man, he's not someone you want to cross. Black Mamba runs half the drug trade in 3 neighborhoods. Word is he's killed at least 7 people himself." Ivan felt a chill. "And the girl? What is her story?" Jamie shrugged. "Same story as 100 other girls. Came here with dreams, got caught up with the wrong guy who promised her everything, and now she's trapped. It's sad, man, but it ain't our business." That night, Ivan lay awake in his studio apartment, listening to the sounds of the building. And that's when he heard it. A woman's scream, followed by the sound of something breaking, then a man's voice roaring in anger. It was coming from upstairs. From Denzel's apartment. Ivan's fists clenched. He sat up in bed, every instinct from his training telling him to act. But Jamie's words echoed in his mind. "Not our business." He forced himself to stay in bed, but he didn't sleep that night. 2 weeks later, Ivan had caught a bad cold. The New York winter was harsher than Moscow's, somehow, or maybe it was just the lack of proper heating in his apartment. He sat in the waiting room of the free clinic, waiting for his name to be called. That's when she walked in. Genevieve looked different without Denzel hovering over her. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, and her natural hair was loose around her shoulders. She looked younger than he'd thought, maybe 23 or 24. Their eyes met, and for a moment, there was recognition. Ivan made a decision. "Excuse me," he said in his careful English. "You are my neighbor, yes? I have seen you at Maria's kitchen." Genevieve's eyes widened with surprise, then wariness. But something in Ivan's gentle tone made her relax slightly. "Oh, yes. I've seen you there too. You work there, right?" "Yes. My name is Ivan." He extended his hand, and after a hesitation, she shook it. "Genevieve. It is nice to meet you properly, Genevieve. That is a beautiful name." A small smile crossed her face, the first time Ivan had seen her smile. "Thank you. It's actually Nigerian. My parents are from Lagos." They talked for a few minutes. Ivan learned she had come to America 3 years ago on a student visa to study pre-med. She was careful not to mention Denzel, but when the nurse called her name, she stood up and said something that chilled Ivan. "I need to go. I'm getting medicine and bandages for my boyfriend. He was in an accident." The other people in the waiting room exchanged glances. Ivan understood. Everyone knew who Denzel was, and accident was code for a shooting. "It was nice talking to you, Ivan," she said softly before walking away. After she left, an elderly woman sitting nearby leaned over to Ivan. "You new around here, son?" "Yes, ma'am." "That girl, she's with Black Mamba. You seem like a nice boy. Stay away from that situation. Nothing good comes from getting involved with Mamba's business." But Ivan couldn't stay away. Over the next few weeks, he and Genevieve kept running into each other. At the bodega, at Maria's kitchen, at the laundromat. Each conversation revealed more about her. She had dreams of becoming a doctor, of opening a clinic back in Lagos to serve her community. Her parents had saved everything to send her to America for a better life. But student loans had buried her in debt, and that's when she'd met Denzel at a party. He'd seemed charming at first, successful. He'd promised to help with her loans, to support her dreams. By the time she realized what he really was, a violent drug dealer with a possessive streak, she was in too deep. He'd paid off $40,000 of her debt, and he reminded her every day that she belonged to him now. "Why do you stay?" Ivan asked her one afternoon. They were at Maria's kitchen, and Denzel was in the hospital after another business dispute. Genevieve had come in alone. Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. He'll kill me if I try to leave. He's told me that. And even if I could leave, I owe him $20,000 still. How could I ever pay that back?" "There are ways," Ivan said carefully. "There are people who can help." "You don't know him," Genevieve cut him off. "You don't know what he's capable of. Please, Ivan. You're very kind. But this is my burden to carry." She left quickly after that, and for several days, Ivan didn't see her. That same night, Genevieve sat on the edge of the bed, watching Denzel sleep. His shoulder was bandaged, a bullet wound from a deal gone wrong. She'd been the one to clean it, to dress it, to nurse him back to health using the medical training she'd been trying to complete. She remembered the first time he'd hit her. It was 6 months into their relationship. She'd questioned why he was out so late, and his hand had moved faster than she could process. After, he'd cried, apologized, promised it would never happen again. But it did happen again. And again. Until the apologies stopped coming. Now, she lived in constant fear, walking on eggshells, trying to anticipate his moods. He'd taken her phone, monitored her every movement through his boys, who watched the building. She was allowed to go to the grocery store, to Maria's kitchen, to the clinic, but always under surveillance. And yet, these past few weeks, meeting Ivan had awakened something in her she thought was dead. Hope, maybe. Or just the memory of what it felt like to be treated with kindness. Ivan never looked at her the way Denzel did, like property. He looked at her like she was a person, like she mattered. She thought about his question. "Why do you stay?" The truth was more complicated than debt. It was fear. It was shame. It was the sunk cost of 3 years of her life. It was the belief that maybe she deserved this for being foolish enough to fall for Denzel's lies in the first place. But looking at Denzel now, snoring and peaceful while she lived in constant terror, Genevieve felt something crack inside her. How much longer can I live like this? Denzel had recovered and was back to his usual routine. The beatings had resumed, never where bruises would show. He was smart about that. Genevieve had stopped going to Maria's kitchen, afraid that her growing friendship with Ivan would provoke Denzel's jealousy. Ivan noticed her absence. Each day he watched the door, hoping she'd walk in. He tried to convince himself it wasn't his business, that Jamie was right, that he should focus on his own goals. But he couldn't shake the image of those beautiful, terrified eyes. On the second day of her absence, he broke down and asked Jamie about it. "Man, I told you to stay out of it," Jamie sighed. Look, I get it. She seems nice. She's beautiful. But Denzel owns this block. You think you can save her? You're just a restaurant worker, bro. No offense, but what are you gonna do? Ivan stared at his friend. Jamie didn't know about his past, his training, his father's empire. He didn't know that Ivan had been groomed to run an organization that made Denzel look like a small-time amateur. But that was exactly who Ivan was trying not to be. You are right, Ivan said finally. It is not my business. But his heart didn't believe his words. Genevieve had become an expert at survival. She knew when to speak and when to stay silent. She knew how to hide money, $5 here, $10 there, in the lining of her winter coat. She knew how to send emails to her parents from the library without Denzel finding out, always saying everything was fine, not wanting to worry them. What she didn't know was how to stop thinking about Ivan. There was something about him, a gentleness that seemed at odds with his obvious strength. She'd noticed his hands, scarred knuckles that suggested he knew how to fight. She'd noticed the way he carried himself, confident but not aggressive. And she'd noticed the way he looked at her, like she was someone worth caring about. On a Wednesday afternoon, Denzel sent her to get groceries. His boys, as always, were watching, but they stayed outside while she shopped. Genevieve took her time, savoring these small moments of relative freedom. She bought everything on Denzel's list, plus ingredients for a meal she wanted to cook. Maybe if she made his favorite, he'd be in a good mood tonight. Walking back to the apartment building, grocery bags in both hands, she felt almost peaceful. It was a beautiful spring day, and for just a moment, she let herself imagine a different life. She climbed the stairs, fumbled with her keys, and pushed open the apartment door. What she saw made the grocery bags slip from her hands. Denzel was on their couch, the one she sat on every day, with another woman. They were naked, obviously mid-act, and when the door opened, Denzel didn't even look ashamed. He just looked annoyed. Genevieve. What the hell? I told you to knock. The woman giggled, adjusting herself as if this was all very amusing. Genevieve had suspected for months that Denzel cheated. But seeing it, in their home, on their furniture, while she'd been out running his errands like a servant, something inside her finally broke. She didn't say a word. She just turned around and walked out, leaving the groceries spilled across the floor. She didn't think about where she was going. Her feet just carried her down the stairs, out the building, down 2 blocks to Maria's kitchen. Ivan was behind the counter, taking an order. When he saw her face, he immediately excused himself and came around to her. Genevieve. What happened? She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. You said you would help me. You said you cared. I'm tired, Ivan. I'm so tired. And I'm ready. I'm ready for anything if it means getting away from him. Ivan took her hands in his. They were shaking. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. Do you trust me? It was insane. They'd known each other for less than 2 months. But looking into his eyes, Genevieve realized she did trust him. More than she'd trusted anyone in years. Yes, she whispered. Then come with me. Right now. Do not go back to that apartment. 1 hour later. Genevieve sat on Ivan's small couch, wrapped in a blanket, while he made tea. His apartment was tiny but clean, with books stacked neatly on a shelf and a small icon of St. Nicholas in the corner, the only decoration. You are safe here, Ivan said, handing her the tea. But I need to make some phone calls. It will be okay, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She nodded, still in shock. Ivan stepped into the small bathroom for privacy and pulled out his phone, the one he'd bought in America with a new number. He hadn't called this number in 8 months. His mother answered on the second ring. Ivan. Bоже mой, is that you? Yes, Mama. I am sorry I have not called. How are you? How am I? Kotia's voice broke. Your father has been like a storm for 8 months. But never mind that. Are you safe? Are you healthy? I am both, Mama. I am good. I work, I eat, I have a place to live. I am happy. Or I was trying to be. What's wrong, my darling? Ivan took a breath. Mama, I need to talk to Papa. I know he is angry with me, but I need his help. There is a girl. A girl. His mother's tone immediately brightened. Tell me about her. Despite everything, Ivan smiled. She is kind, Mama. She is smart. She wants to be a doctor. She reminds me of you. She has this strength inside her, but life has been cruel. She is trapped by a bad man, and I want to help her. But this man, he is dangerous. Not dangerous like Papa, but dangerous in his own way. And I cannot do this alone. There was a long pause. Put me on speaker, Ivan. Your father is here. Ivan's heart raced as he hit the speaker button. Ivan. His father's voice was cold, controlled. 8 months of silence had not softened Dmitry Volkov. Papa. Your mother says you need help. With a girl. Yes. So you call now. After 8 months of silence. After running away like a coward. Ivan felt his jaw tighten. I left because I could not become you, Papa. I still cannot. But I am calling because I realize now. The things you taught me, the skills, the connections, they can be used for good. To protect instead of to harm. There was a long silence. Then, surprisingly, his father laughed. A genuine laugh. You sound like your mother. She said the same thing to me 25 years ago. His tone softened slightly. Tell me about this problem. Ivan explained everything. Denzel, the drug operation, the abuse, Genevieve's debt. When he finished, Dmitry was quiet for a long moment. This black Mamba. He is nothing. A small-time dealer playing king in his little territory. I can make him disappear by morning. No, Papa. I do not want him dead. Why not? He beats women, he deals poison to children. The world is better without him. Because then I am you. I want him stopped, removed from power. But not killed. Another pause. Then, you are still so naive, Sin. But, I respect what you are trying to do. I will make some calls. Consider it a gift. Thank you, Papa. Do not thank me yet. When this is done, we will talk about your future. You cannot run restaurants forever. You have a brain, an education, a name. There are legitimate ways to build an empire, Ivan. Ways that would make your mother happy and use what I taught you. Think about it. I will, Papa. His mother came back on the line. I am proud of you, Ivan. Protecting this girl. This is who you are meant to be. After he hung up, Ivan sat for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then he stepped out of the bathroom. Genevieve looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. What happens now? Now. You stay here. You are safe. And the problem of Denzel? It is being handled. What did you do? Who did you call? Ivan sat down beside her. Genevieve, I need to tell you something about who I was before I came to America. What Dmitry Volkov set in motion from Moscow was surgical and efficient. He didn't need to come to America. He had connections everywhere, including with certain federal agencies who were already investigating Denzel's operation. Anonymous tips flooded in. Warehouse locations. Names of corrupt cops on Denzel's payroll. Bank accounts. Supply routes. Simultaneously, Denzel's suppliers, who had deeper connections than he knew, received word that Black Mamba had become a liability. His protection evaporated overnight. On Friday evening, just 2 days after Genevieve had walked out of that apartment, Denzel was involved in a shootout with a rival gang. A gang that had mysteriously received information about a major drug shipment. The shootout left 3 dead, including Denzel. The news spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Genevieve was still at Ivan's apartment when Jamie came running in, breathless. You heard? Black Mamba is dead. Shootout over in East New York. It's all over the news. Genevieve's hand went to her mouth. She felt. What? Not grief. Maybe relief. Definitely guilt for feeling relieved. And fear, because she knew this wasn't over. His brother, she whispered. Marcus. He's worse than Denzel. He'll come for me. The debt. Ivan had anticipated this. Let him come. 2 days later, Marcus did come. But he didn't come with threats. He came with an unexpected visitor. A lawyer, someone clearly used to dealing with people far more dangerous than street-level dealers. The lawyer laid it out simply. Genevieve's debt would be paid in full, all $20,000 that remained. In exchange, she would sign documents relinquishing any claim to Denzel's assets, not that there were many after the federal seizure, and agree to never speak about her relationship with him to authorities. Who's paying this? Marcus demanded, looking at Ivan for the first time. I am, Ivan said calmly. Marcus sized him up. You're that Russian kid who works at the restaurant. Where you getting 20 grand? That is not your concern. The money is clean, it will be paid in full, and Genevieve will be free. Do we have an agreement? Marcus leaned back, studying Ivan with new eyes. There was something about this quiet Russian kid that made him uneasy, a stillness that reminded him of truly dangerous men he'd known. Yeah, Marcus finally said. We got an agreement. But if you're smart, you'll take your girl and get out of this neighborhood. Start fresh somewhere. That was already my plan, Ivan said. 3 months later, Genevieve stepped off the plane at Sheremetyevo International Airport and into a world she'd only seen in movies. Moscow in the summer was beautiful, all golden domes and white nights. Ivan's mother was waiting at the gate, and despite Genevieve's nervousness, Kotya immediately pulled her into a warm embrace. Oh, you are even more beautiful than Ivan described. Welcome, welcome. Meeting Dmitry Volkov was more intimidating. He was a large man with cold eyes and a presence that filled any room he entered. But when he looked at his son, Genevieve saw something soften in those eyes. So, this is the girl worth calling home for, Dmitry said in English, for her benefit. Yes, Papa. This is Genevieve. Dmitry studied her for a long moment, then nodded. You are welcome in my home. Any woman who could make my son finally call his father must be special. Over dinner, Genevieve learned that Dmitry was slowly transitioning his empire into legitimate businesses. Construction, real estate, import, export. Ivan's rejection and his reasoning had, surprisingly, planted a seed. I am not young anymore, Dmitry said over vodka. And your mother, she never let me forget what I was building. An empire of fear is not a legacy, it is a burden. Maybe it is time for change. It was a beautiful time in Russia. Ivan showed her places and how he grew up. 2 weeks later in Lagos, Nigeria. If Genevieve had been nervous meeting Ivan's parents, Ivan was terrified meeting hers. Her father, Dr. Emmanuel Nagy, was a retired professor. Her mother, Grace, was a nurse who ran a small clinic in their neighborhood. They were educated, dignified people who had sacrificed everything to give their daughter opportunities. The first dinner was tense. They had known something was wrong for the past year, despite Genevieve's reassurances. Now, learning the truth about Denzel, about what their daughter had endured, they were heartbroken. We should have known, Grace wept. We should have come to check on you. No, Mama, Genevieve held her mother's hands. I hid it well. I was ashamed. But I'm free now. And I want you to meet the man who saved me. Dr. Nagy turned to Ivan with hard eyes. My daughter tells me you paid her debts. $20,000. Why? What do you want from her? Ivan met his gaze steadily. I want nothing but her happiness, sir. I paid the debt because it was right, and because I care about your daughter. What happens between us? That is for her to decide. He's telling the truth, Papa, Genevieve said softly. Ivan has never asked me for anything. He just cared when no one else did. Over the 2 weeks they spent in Lagos, Ivan won them over. He was respectful, he helped with chores, he listened to Dr. Nagy's stories with genuine interest. And most importantly, They saw how he looked at their daughter, not with possession, but with reverence. Genevieve introduced him to Nigerian food, jollof rice and fufu, and obviously Nigerian nightlife and parties. On their last night, Grace pulled Ivan aside. "You love her," she said. It wasn't a question. Ivan didn't hesitate. "Yes. Very much. And she loves you. I can see it." Grace smiled. "You know, I prayed every day for 3 years that someone would save my daughter. I never imagined God would send a Russian boy who worked in a restaurant." Ivan laughed. "Life is strange, yes? Promise me you'll protect her. Promise me you'll never be like that other man." "I promise you," Ivan said seriously. "On my mother's life, I will spend every day trying to be worthy of her." 2 years later, Ivan stood in the window of his office on the 15th floor of a building in Manhattan. Below, the city thrummed with life. Behind him on his desk were contracts for the 3rd location of Volkov Imports, a legitimate business specializing in European goods and art. His father had been true to his word. The seed money had come from Moscow, but everything Ivan built was clean, legal, and his own. Dmitri was slowly divesting from the criminal empire, though Ivan suspected that transition would take years. But it was happening. The door opened, and Genevieve walked in, wearing scrubs. She had just finished her shift at the free clinic she'd opened in Brooklyn, funded partially by Ivan, partially by grants, and partially by his mother, who had become an unexpected philanthropist. "Busy day?" Ivan asked, pulling her into his arms. "Always. But good. We saw 43 patients today. There was a little girl. She reminded me of myself at that age. Smart. Hopeful. Her mother couldn't afford her medicine, so we gave it to her for free." "This is why I love you," Ivan said, kissing her forehead. "Your heart. And I love you because you saved me when you had no reason to. When it would have been smarter to walk away." "Walking away was never an option," Ivan said. "Not from the moment I saw those beautiful eyes." Genevieve pulled back to look at him. "I have something to tell you." "What is it?" "Your father called. He wants to know when you're coming to Moscow. He says there are some business opportunities he wants to discuss with you. Legitimate ones." Ivan raised an eyebrow. "He is persistent, Papa. What do you think? Should we go?" "I think," Genevieve said carefully, "that you'll figure out the right balance. You can honor where you came from without becoming what you feared. You've already proven that." Ivan looked out at the city again. Once, he had run from his legacy, terrified of becoming his father. Now, he understood that legacy was a choice. He could take the skills, the connections, the strength his father had given him and use them to build something good. Maybe that was the real empire worth building. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Jamie. "Bro, you still coming to my wedding next month? And please tell me you're bringing Genevieve. My mama wants to meet her." Ivan smiled. Jamie had been his first friend in America, and despite Ivan's secrets coming to light, their friendship had survived. Jamie now managed one of Maria's Kitchen's new locations. Ivan had helped the original owners expand. "Come on," Genevieve said, taking his hand. "Let's go home. I'm cooking tonight." "Home," Ivan repeated, savoring the word. For so long, he hadn't had a real home, just places he was running from or running to. Now, home was wherever she was. As they walked out of the office together, Ivan thought about everything that had led to this moment. His father's brutal lessons that he'd learned to subvert for good. His mother's gentle strength that had given him permission to be different. The $3,000 that had been his only asset when he'd arrived in America. The chance meeting at a clinic. The courage it took for Genevieve to finally say, "I'm ready." Every choice, every moment, had led here. Maybe that was the real story. Not about running away from darkness or being saved, but about choosing every day to be better than your circumstances. To break the chains that bound you and forge something new. Ivan Volkov had been born to inherit an empire of fear. Instead, he chose to build an empire of hope. And that, he thought as he held Genevieve's hand in the New York evening, made all the difference. Thank you for watching this story of redemption, love, and second chances. If this touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories. Share this video with someone who needs to hear a message of hope today. And remember, we all have chains that bind us, but we also have the power to break them. Leave a comment below telling us what you thought of Ivan and Genevieve's story. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Please subscribe, we have a lot of stories lined up and we need your motivation and support. Thank you as you subscribe.